The small alien scout ship moved silently through the star-strewn darkness, gliding along the edge of a contested star system. Its crew was tense but confident. A group of explorers and raiders who had seen countless worlds and strange civilizations. They believed themselves clever, skilled, and untouchable. Stories about humans floated through the galaxy, whispered warnings about their strange behavior and fearsome reputation, but the aliens had always dismissed them as exaggerations. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they seemed primitive compared to the technology and knowledge of the alien fleet. Their sensors picked up a lone vessel drifting along a trade route. It was small, unarmed, and moving slowly. The aliens examined it and exchanged amused looks. "Easy prey," one said, a hint of excitement in its voice. The captain of the scout ship allowed a small smirk to spread across its face. The crew prepared to board, eager to claim whatever cargo might be on the human ship. The human vessel appeared ordinary, almost fragile against the cold, dark backdrop of space. Its hull was scratched in places, its engines leaving faint trails in the void. But there was something in the way it moved, steady, deliberate, that felt strange. The aliens dismissed the feeling. They had encountered many species that tried to act confident, only to crumble when faced with true power. As the alien ship approached, the human crew went about their work, completely unaware, or so it seemed. The aliens observed them, noting that there were only a few humans aboard, moving calmly, almost lazily, as if they had no idea what danger was approaching. The aliens whispered among themselves, speculating about the riches and technology they might find. They joked about how easy it would be to capture these humans and take them as prisoners. The captain of the scout ship gave the order to board. The small crew suited up, their armor reflecting the pale light of distant stars. They spoke of past victories, bragging about how no species had ever stood a chance against them. But among their confident chatter, a subtle unease lingered. Some remembered vague warnings they had heard about humans, about how human ships did not take prisoners. The word seemed almost like a superstition, the kind old captains shared to scare new recruits. The boarding pod detached and shot toward the human vessel, gliding silently through space. Inside, the alien crew checked their weapons, tightened their grips, and prepared for confrontation. They imagined panicked humans begging for mercy, scrambling to surrender and yielding their ship and cargo. None of the aliens thought that things could go wrong. None considered that they were walking into a trap. When the boarding pod docked, the doors hissed open. The aliens stepped into the human ship, expecting silence broken by fear and pleas. Instead, the corridor was quiet. The humans moved methodically, almost too calmly. Their eyes met the aliens with a steadiness that was unsettling. The air smelled faintly of oil and recycled air. Nothing extraordinary, yet the aliens felt a strange tension pressing against them. A sense that the humans were aware of every step they took. The aliens began to move through the corridors, searching for control rooms and valuable cargo. They whispered instructions to one another, cautious but still overconfident. One alien bent over a console, trying to override the ship's systems while another patrolled the hallways. Every sound the aliens made seemed to be noticed by the humans, though the humans did not react openly. Their calmness was a mystery, and it unnerved the alien crew more than they would admit. Suddenly, a subtle click echoed through the corridor, almost inaudible. One of the aliens froze, sensing it, but before it could react, a hidden door slid open and a small mechanism blocked their path. It was a minor obstacle, yet it was the first real sign that this human ship was prepared. The aliens exchanged nervous glances but shrugged it off, attributing it to luck rather than planning. The human crew remained unseen, their silence deliberate. They watched the aliens' movements with precision, knowing every twist and turn the intruders made. It was a calculated patience, the kind that comes from experience. The aliens, though, still assumed that humans would flee or beg for mercy once confronted. They could not imagine that these humans had rules stronger than fear, rules that made them dangerous in ways the aliens had never seen. As the aliens continued deeper into the ship, their confidence began to waver. Doors that should have been simple to open required codes. Corridors that should have led directly to control rooms were blocked or rerouted, and subtle traps slowed their progress. Panic did not yet set in, but irritation began to take hold. This was not the effortless conquest they had imagined. They whispered warnings to each other, suggestions to retreat, but pride and curiosity pushed them onward. The humans watched silently, waiting for the moment to act. They did not speak, did not panic, and did not reveal their full capabilities. Every move was intentional, every delay strategic. The aliens were stepping into a lesson they did not yet understand. The human law of the stars was not written in treaties or agreements, but in action. Humans did not take prisoners. Anyone who tried to exploit or capture them would quickly learn the cost of breaking that rule. By the time the alien crew reached what they assumed was the ship's main control hub, the sense of unease had grown. Something was wrong. Systems that should have been offline were partially active. Alarms that should have sounded remained silent. The humans' calm presence was no longer comforting. It was a warning. Every step they had taken was guided, every move anticipated. The captain of the alien boarding team frowned. "They're prepared," it admitted quietly, though it refused to consider the deeper truth. Preparation was one thing. Fearlessness was another. The aliens did not yet realize that they had entered the domain of a species that followed a law unlike any other in the galaxy. Human ships did not take prisoners. The warning had been ignored, dismissed as myth, and now the aliens were already in danger of paying the price. And in the silent corridors of the human vessel, the crew waited, patient, calm, ready. The first confrontation was coming, and the aliens had no idea how dangerous it would be. The lesson of the stars was about to begin, and it would be one the alien crew would never forget. The aliens moved cautiously through the human ship, each step echoing faintly along the metallic corridors. Their confidence from before had begun to waver, replaced by a sense of frustration and confusion. They had expected an easy capture, perhaps a few frightened humans begging for mercy, and now nothing was as simple as they imagined. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating, and it gnawed at their nerves. The captain of the alien boarding team glanced at the others. "They're hiding something," it said quietly, though the words felt inadequate to describe the unease in its gut. "Keep moving. Search faster." Pride was stronger than caution, as it often is with those who underestimate their opponent. They came upon the first room that seemed promising, a small control hub with blinking lights and a bank of displays. One alien rushed forward, trying to override the systems and gain control. Fingers danced across the panels, wires sparked, and the screen flickered. But as soon as they believed they had gained access, the screen blinked again, and a new interface appeared, one they did not recognize. "What is this?" one alien muttered, leaning closer. The display showed schematics of the ship, indicating multiple corridors and hidden compartments. But it was not random. It was alive, reacting to their movements. Every time they attempted to force a door open, it shifted, redirected, or locked them out. The aliens felt a creeping fear. They had underestimated the humans' planning, and the consequences were beginning to show. The boarding team split into smaller groups, trying to cover more ground. Each group expected resistance or panic, but instead, there was calm observation. Human eyes followed them from shadows and hidden observation points, always measuring, always calculating. Every step they took seemed anticipated, and that realization shook the aliens more than any weapon could. As one group moved through a narrow corridor, a subtle hiss echoed from the walls. A door snapped shut behind them, cutting off retreat. Panic began to bubble in their ranks. They had imagined the humans as soft, predictable, and weak, yet every step revealed a level of intelligence and preparation that was terrifying. A human crew member appeared from a side passage, but not in the way the aliens expected. There was no shouting, no blaster fire, no desperate resistance. The human simply stood, observing, a quiet presence that seemed to fill the corridor. The alien in front raised a weapon, heart pounding, ready to demand surrender. But before the command could be given, a subtle mechanism activated. The floor beneath their feet shifted slightly, a trap designed not to kill immediately but to intimidate and control. The alien stumbled and fell, heart racing. Another alien rushed to help, but the humans had already anticipated that movement. Small energy pulses activated from hidden panels, creating barriers that slowed their advance. Panic spread among the aliens. They had thought themselves clever, but now every plan they had relied on was unraveling. For the first time, they were realizing what it meant to face humans in their own domain. "Fall back!" shouted the captain, though the words were more desperate than commanding. Pride and fear warred within its chest. Some aliens hesitated, unwilling to admit defeat, while others scrambled toward what they hoped was an exit. The humans did not pursue aggressively, yet their presence was suffocating. The aliens could feel eyes watching from every corner, calculating, waiting for the exact moment to strike. In another section of the ship, a separate group of aliens had attempted to reach the cargo bay. They thought if they seized the goods quickly, they could at least leave with some advantage. But as they opened the final door, they were met with a simple, yet effective barrier, a reinforced bulkhead that could not be bypassed without the proper code. The humans had engineered every part of the ship to anticipate intruders. The aliens realized with growing horror that this was not just a ship, it was a fortress designed to teach a lesson. Frustration turned into fear, and fear began to breed mistakes. Aliens tripped over small obstacles, ignored warning signals, and panicked when systems they believed they controlled acted unpredictably. The human ship seemed alive, not with emotion, but with intention. Every lock, every mechanism, every subtle restriction was meant to guide the intruders into understanding one simple truth. Human ships did not take prisoners. A small alien near the ship's central corridor froze as a quiet, almost imperceptible alarm went off. The humans did not rush in. There was no visible threat. Yet the alien felt the presence of hundreds of small sensors, carefully placed, monitoring every heartbeat, every step, every decision. The realization hit hard. This was not just about technology. This was about the humans' understanding of strategy, patience, and their unbreakable law. The captain of the alien boarding party finally spoke again, voice tense and low. "We underestimated them. We were too sure. We should retreat." Pride still clawed at its mind, but the truth was undeniable. The aliens were trapped, not by brute force, but by intelligence, calm precision, and a law they had ignored. Meanwhile, the humans moved silently among the shadows. They were not aggressive for the sake of aggression. They were not cruel, but they were firm, unwavering. Every measure, every trap, every subtle redirection of the aliens' path was calculated. They understood fully that a species that underestimated them would quickly learn the consequences. Their law was simple. Intruders could not be allowed to escape with humans alive. No prisoners, no exceptions. One alien, injured from a trap earlier, crawled along the corridor, fear overtaking its pride. It realized that every step deeper into this ship was a mistake. Every decision made in arrogance had led them into this situation. Others argued, blaming one another, their coordination breaking down. The human patience only grew. No one shouted, no one fired recklessly. They simply waited. As hours passed, the aliens' morale crumbled. They had expected to control the situation within moments, perhaps minutes. Now it felt like an eternity. Every movement was monitored, every action countered before it could succeed. And yet the humans did not gloat, did not taunt. Their calmness was almost a weapon in itself, a reminder that this was their law in action. Finally, the alien captain understood what the whispers and warnings had meant. They do not take prisoners," it muttered, almost to itself. The words were heavy with realization, fear, and regret. The law was not a rumor or superstition. It was the backbone of human survival, and they had ignored it. Deep in the bowels of the ship, the humans watched silently as the aliens began to falter. Every mistake, every panic, every misstep was observed. The lesson was already being learned, though slowly, painfully, and thoroughly. Humans did not negotiate. Humans did not bargain. Humans did not allow arrogance to survive in their corridors. Those who underestimated them would pay the price in fear, in caution, and in respect. The alien crew, once so confident, now realized they were trapped in a lesson far greater than any battle they had faced before. They had broken a law they did not understand, entered a domain they did not respect, and faced a species they had dismissed. Fear settled in their hearts, fear of something they had always believed to be ordinary. And yet the humans continued, their silent watch, calm and precise, reminding the aliens in every way that this law was absolute, unyielding, and unforgiving. By the time the aliens regrouped, battered and uncertain, they understood one thing clearly. Survival in this encounter was no longer a matter of skill or technology. It was a matter of respect for a law that could not be broken. And even as they plotted their next move, the humans' quiet vigilance made it clear that breaking that law came with consequences far beyond what any alien could imagine. The first mistakes had been made, the lesson had begun, and the humans waited patiently for the final understanding to dawn. The aliens had entered a world governed by a simple rule: never underestimate humans. Never expect mercy. Never think a human ship can be conquered or bargained with. The aliens had moved deeper into the human ship, their arrogance slowly replaced by unease. Every corridor, every room seemed designed not just to house a crew but to teach a lesson. What had begun as a simple boarding operation had turned into a trap they could not understand, and their confidence was cracking. It began subtly. Doors that had seemed open moments ago now refused to budge. Consoles that had seemed easy to override displayed warnings and codes the aliens did not recognize. Every attempt to manipulate the ship's systems ended in frustration. The aliens were clever, yes, but this was beyond anything they had encountered. Every time they tried to force control, the humans had anticipated it, adjusting systems quietly, efficiently, without confrontation. Then came the first real trap. One alien reached for a corridor panel, intending to disable a security measure. Before it could react, the floor beneath its feet shifted, tilting slightly, just enough to throw it off balance. The movement was gentle but precise. It fell into a narrow pit designed to hold them in place. Panic surged as it struggled to climb out, realizing that every step in this ship was monitored, anticipated, and controlled. Another alien rushed to help, but a quiet pulse shot through the walls, activating a thin energy barrier that separated them. They could see each other, could shout, but could not reach one another. Frustration and fear began to build, replacing their pride with confusion. The human crew did not rush in to attack. There was no immediate danger from weapons. Instead, the humans watched, silent and patient, letting the aliens understand that they were already outmatched. The humans were not cruel. They were efficient. Their ship was designed to enforce a single law. Intruders were not allowed to survive if they threatened the crew. Every measure, every subtle obstacle was part of this rule. The aliens had broken it the moment they decided to board. Now they were learning what that law meant in practice. The alien captain ordered a regroup, its voice tight with stress. "Fall back to the central corridor. Reroute and regain control," it barked. But as the crew attempted to obey, hidden panels shifted, rerouting them into narrower passages and dead ends. Panic grew. The aliens realized that the humans were controlling their movements without ever appearing to do so. It was as if the ship itself was alive, guiding the invaders toward lessons they could not ignore. One alien attempted to communicate with its ship, sending signals for reinforcements. The messages bounced back, distorted or blocked. The human crew had disabled all external communications quietly, ensuring that the aliens could not call for help. Isolation set in, heavy and oppressive, and the aliens began to feel the weight of their mistake. They were alone, trapped inside a ship they could not control, facing a species they had underestimated. The humans' approach was subtle but devastating. Small traps, energy barriers, and hidden compartments slowed the aliens, forcing them into tight spaces where mistakes became fatal. Every move they made was anticipated. Every attempt to strike, to manipulate, or to escape was countered not with force but with cleverness. One alien tried to disable a panel with brute strength, only for it to release a net of energy strands that held it suspended, uncomfortable but unharmed. The intent was clear: a lesson, not immediate death, but a warning that the law could not be ignored. As the aliens struggled, a human figure emerged from a side corridor. It moved slowly, deliberately, eyes steady, body relaxed. It did not shout or fire. Its presence alone made the aliens hesitate. It was a simple demonstration of confidence and control. One alien raised its weapon, trembling, only to find that the human had already anticipated the motion. A quiet mechanism activated. disarming the alien without a single shot fired. Fear spread like wildfire. The captain of the alien boarding team tried to regain authority, but its voice sounded hollow even to itself. Spread out. Check every compartment. Find the central hub. Pride still fought within it, but the truth was unavoidable. They were trapped. Every corridor, every doorway, every panel had been anticipated and prepared for. The aliens were not dealing with a ship. They were facing a system of intelligence that combined strategy, patience, and lethal efficiency. Hours passed. The aliens moved cautiously, trying to avoid further traps. Each misstep was a reminder of their arrogance. One by one, they encountered hidden energy fields, small mechanical snares, and corridors that shifted in ways that made escape almost impossible. They realized that the humans had studied species like theirs before. Every tactic, every expectation, every reaction had been considered. The aliens were not outsmarting the humans, they were playing a game already lost. And yet the humans did not engage recklessly. There was no shouting, no overt aggression. They waited, always patient, letting the aliens' mistakes reveal the truth of the law. Human ships did not take prisoners. Intruders who ignored this fact were not punished out of cruelty. They were disciplined out of necessity. The aliens were learning that survival was impossible unless respect was given to that simple rule. One alien, battered and trembling, finally spoke. We should leave, it admitted. Fear had replaced pride. Its companions, however, were slower to accept defeat. They argued, blaming each other for mistakes, trying to assert control over systems they could not manipulate. Every argument, every hesitation only worsened their situation. The humans continued to observe silently, guiding them into mistakes without even appearing to act. The captain knew it was too late to retreat. The humans had isolated their groups, rerouted them, and disabled all paths to escape. One wrong move could mean serious injury, and the aliens realized that even if they survived, the lesson would never be forgotten. Their arrogance had been their undoing. Suddenly, a quiet alarm echoed through the ship. Not loud or aggressive, but enough to make the remaining aliens freeze. Hidden doors slid open, revealing compartments they had not noticed before. From these compartments, small drones or mechanical devices emerged, herding them toward the main deck. They did not fire weapons. They simply controlled movement, guiding the aliens in subtle ways that reminded them they were not in charge here. The humans had learned long ago that confrontation was not always about brute force. Patience, strategy, and controlled action were more effective. The aliens were discovering this the hard way. They were being taught that breaking the law that humans never took prisoners, was a mistake far worse than any physical injury. The consequences were mental, psychological, and inescapable. By the time the aliens regrouped in what they believed to be a secure area, their numbers were diminished, their confidence shattered. Injuries were minor, but the psychological toll was immense. The humans had not even shown their full strength. Yet the lesson had been clear. Arrogance could not survive here. Pride could not outmatch law. And the aliens would not forget that human ships did not take prisoners. As they looked around, trapped and exhausted, the captain finally admitted the truth aloud. We underestimated them. We broke the law. There was no shame in saying it, only realization. Fear replaced pride, and the lesson sank deep. The humans did not need to act aggressively to dominate. The rule alone ensured that those who defied it would face consequences. The humans continued their silent watch, calm and steady, as if reminding the aliens that the law would never be broken lightly. Every movement, every decision, every trap was part of a system that enforced the one truth of interstellar survival. Human ships were merciless when necessary. The aliens had learned this painfully, and there was no escape from the lesson except through respect. By the end of the encounter, the aliens understood fully that the humans' power did not come from weapons alone. It came from control, patience, and an unbreakable law. Intruders could think themselves clever, but human ships were not just vessels. They were guardians of a principle that demanded obedience and respect. And the aliens, humbled and frightened, finally began to see the price of ignoring it. The first wave of the lesson had ended, but the encounter was far from over. The aliens were trapped in a system that punished arrogance, and the humans had not even begun to reveal the full extent of their methods. The law of the stars was simple but absolute. Human ships did not take prisoners. Those who tried to challenge it would feel the consequences, and the aliens were only beginning to understand just how inescapable that truth could be. The humans moved quietly through their ship, observing every corridor and compartment. To the casual observer, it might have seemed as if nothing was happening, but in reality, every step they took was deliberate, calculated, and essential. They had trained for situations like this for years, learning to anticipate intruders, to guide them into areas where mistakes would cost them not just comfort, but survival. The human crew did not panic or rush. Calmness was their weapon. While the aliens floundered in frustration and fear, the humans moved like shadows, quietly monitoring sensors, adjusting systems, and ensuring that every path the invaders took led them exactly where the humans wanted. Their ship was more than a vessel. It was a guardian of a principle, a law older than any treaty or agreement. No intruder could escape its enforcement. From the control deck, one human studied the alien movements on the display. The aliens had spread into multiple corridors, trying to cover more ground, thinking they could outsmart the ship. The humans allowed them to believe this, letting pride guide the invaders. Every mistake the aliens made was observed, catalogued, and subtly used to reinforce the lesson. It was not cruelty that guided the humans. They did not take pleasure in the aliens' fear. Their actions were precise and necessary, a reflection of a simple, unbreakable rule. Human ships do not take prisoners. The rule was absolute, and every crew member understood that it was not optional. Intruders might think they could bargain or overpower humans, but they were wrong. The law was enforced quietly, calmly, without emotion, yet with complete inevitability. Through the narrow corridors, humans adjusted hidden barriers and rerouted airlocks. They were careful to make the aliens feel that every path was available, only to close it off at the exact moment that mistakes were about to be made. It was a slow, deliberate teaching, a methodical unfolding of consequences that would leave a lasting impression. Every trap, every controlled obstacle was a part of the lesson. In one section of the ship, a small team of humans monitored the alien captain. They had watched its overconfidence for hours, noting how it tried to maintain control over a situation it could no longer manage. The humans allowed minor victories, small apparent successes to keep the aliens moving forward. Every time the captain thought it had regained the upper hand, the humans subtly adjusted the environment, reinforcing that arrogance was a danger, and respect was the only way to survive. Another group worked on communication systems, ensuring that the aliens could not call for help. If the intruders thought that allies might arrive to rescue them, that hope had been carefully removed. Isolation was a crucial part of the strategy. Without panic, without rush, the humans ensured that the aliens would understand that they were alone in a world where laws were enforced in ways they had not expected. The humans' calm efficiency was almost eerie. One crew member moved through a dimly lit corridor, adjusting a panel, redirecting a door, and closing an unseen hatch. To an alien, it might have seemed as if the ship itself was alive, responding intelligently to intruders. In a way, it was. Every mechanism, every control system, and every hidden measure was designed to respond, to anticipate, and to enforce the law. The aliens had walked into a space where rules were absolute, and they would learn it soon enough. Even small mistakes by the aliens were used as lessons. One group had attempted to force a door open, expecting it to yield to strength or cunning. Instead, the humans triggered a subtle locking mechanism, forcing the invaders to retreat. The humans watched silently as frustration built, knowing that each moment of panic or error brought the aliens closer to understanding the law. No one was harmed unnecessarily, yet fear and respect began to take root naturally. Patience was key. The humans did not need to attack openly. They understood that the aliens' pride would lead them into repeated errors. By letting the invaders believe they were in control, the humans allowed them to experience the consequences of their arrogance firsthand. Every obstacle, every challenge, every misstep was a teaching moment. They were not just defending the ship, they were enforcing a principle that had kept humans safe across countless encounters. From the observation deck, a human noted the smallest details: a trembling claw, a shift in posture, the subtle signs of panic spreading among the alien ranks. Each observation was quietly communicated, adjustments made in real time, and yet no one panicked. The human's control was absolute yet invisible, like the steady pressure of gravity that could not be ignored but could not be felt. In a smaller compartment, a human adjusted a surveillance device to ensure that one alien could see only what was intended. Its path was guided subtly, its confidence slowly eroding. The law was teaching itself in action. The alien captain still clung to hope, still believed that technology or force could save them. But the humans had removed every variable the aliens could rely on. Their only choices now were patience, careful observation, or further mistakes. Even injuries were managed carefully. The humans allowed small traps to cause discomfort, enough to create fear, enough to make the invaders reconsider every choice, but not enough to cause permanent harm. Each minor setback reinforced the lesson that arrogance and disrespect for human law could lead to consequences beyond imagination. Hours passed. The aliens had moved through the ship, encountering frustration, blocked paths, subtle traps, and invisible observers at every turn. They were learning through experience what they had ignored in stories and warnings. The humans remained calm, efficient, and deliberate. They had not fired a weapon, yet they were in complete control. Their law was absolute, and the invaders had no power to resist it. Finally, from the control deck, a human spoke quietly into the internal comm system. "Lesson proceeding as expected," they said. "They are beginning to understand. Maintain patience. Do not intervene unnecessarily." Their calm voice, devoid of urgency, reinforced the principle. Intruders were in a system governed by rules they could not break. In another corridor, an alien stumbled over a hidden threshold, pausing to catch its breath. The humans observed from shadows, ensuring that every mistake became a learning point. It was not cruel. It was necessary. Respect for law, for the boundaries of human territory, was being enforced with precision. The aliens would carry this understanding with them forever, even if they survived the encounter. The humans' focus was never on vengeance. They did not celebrate fear or take joy in intimidation. Their priority was the law, the principle that had guided countless encounters across the galaxy. It was simple. Human ships did not take prisoners, and anyone who tried to violate that rule would be taught, patiently and thoroughly, the cost of arrogance. By the end of the day, the aliens were visibly shaken. Pride had been stripped away, replaced by caution, fear, and respect. They began to understand that technology alone could not guarantee victory, that arrogance could not overcome principle, and that breaking the law of humans carried consequences far greater than they had imagined. The human crew continued their work, silently observing, adjusting, and enforcing the law. To any outside observer, nothing extraordinary might have appeared to occur. Yet the lesson had been delivered in full. The aliens had learned through careful strategy, calm observation, and precise action that human ships were to be respected. Their law was absolute, and every invader would remember it. When the aliens finally retreated to regroup, they did so with heavy hearts and cautious minds. They had survived, but the experience had changed them. They had witnessed a species whose strength lay not in weapons or numbers, but in patience, strategy, and an unbreakable code. Humans did not take prisoners, and the invaders would never forget the lesson that had been taught so quietly, so efficiently, and so completely. The calm, deliberate humans continued their journey through the stars, their ship a symbol of a principle that ensured survival and respect. Every system, every crew member, every mechanism reinforced the same truth. The law was not to be broken, and anyone who tried would learn the hard way. The aliens had entered a world of rules they could not bend, and the humans' enforcement of that law had proven, beyond doubt, that arrogance had no place in human space. The aliens regrouped in a small, dimly lit section of the human ship, their movements slow and cautious. Their pride had been replaced by fear, and every step they took reminded them of the lesson they had ignored. Human ships did not take prisoners. Injuries were minor, but the psychological toll was heavy. They had entered this ship confident, arrogant, and certain of their superiority, and now the reality of human law weighed on them like a crushing weight. The captain of the alien team barked orders, trying to maintain some sense of control. "Check every corridor. Find another way out. Don't let them corner us completely." But even as the words left its mouth, it knew deep down that their options were dwindling. Every attempt to regain control had been anticipated and countered. Every route they thought was open had been subtly blocked. The humans had taken advantage of their arrogance, and now the aliens were paying the price. The crew split into smaller groups, hoping that dividing their forces would give them an advantage. One group tried to reach the communication hub, thinking they could call for reinforcements. Another attempted to disable parts of the ship's systems, believing that control over technology would turn the tide. But the humans had planned for this. Every action the aliens took was monitored, guided, and subtly countered. In the communication hub, the aliens discovered that their signals were being intercepted and redirected. Every attempt to send a distress call was met with silence. The humans had isolated them completely. The alien in charge of communications slammed its fist against the console in frustration. "We can't reach anyone. They've cut us off." It was a bitter realization. Alone, trapped, and outmatched, their survival depended not on strength but on understanding the law they had broken. Meanwhile, the humans moved quietly but decisively. They adjusted energy barriers, rerouted power to key sections, and activated subtle mechanical traps designed to herd the aliens without causing unnecessary harm. It was a careful balance. The humans did not need to strike directly. Their law was enforced not through aggression, but through precision, patience, and control. Every step the aliens took was observed, every mistake noted, every misjudgment quietly corrected. One group of aliens tried to force open a reinforced bulkhead. With a hiss and a subtle vibration, the door remained locked. They struggled, using every tool they had, but nothing worked. From the shadows, a human crew member watched, calm and composed. No words were spoken. No weapons were fired. The aliens were learning the hard way. Strength and technology alone were useless against a principle enforced with skill. As the hours passed, exhaustion began to set in. The aliens had been moving constantly, trying to find weaknesses, trying to regain control, trying to survive. Panic, frustration, and fear began to cloud their judgment. One alien tripped over a small, almost invisible obstacle, and another's attempt to help only triggered a subtle barrier that separated them. The humans were patient, allowing the aliens to make their own mistakes while ensuring the consequences were enough to teach respect. In the central corridor, the alien captain attempted to rally its crew. "We cannot fail. We must survive. Find a way to regain control." But the crew's hesitation, their fear, and the ship's unpredictable response made coordination nearly impossible. The humans had designed this system so that arrogance and panic would work against the intruders. Every corridor, every door, every mechanism had been carefully crafted to enforce the law. One of the aliens, weary and injured, stopped to catch its breath. Its eyes scanned the dimly lit hallway, searching for any sign of human presence. That was when it noticed something subtle. Small panels embedded in the walls, sensors that monitored even the smallest movement. The realization struck like a cold wind. They were being watched constantly. Every step they had taken was anticipated. Their survival depended not on fighting, but on understanding the humans' law and respecting it. The humans continued their silent enforcement. They adjusted energy fields to guide the aliens, activated small mechanical devices to redirect their movements, and ensured that no corridor led to complete freedom. The aliens were learning, slowly and painfully, that every action had consequences, and that the humans' law was absolute. It was not about cruelty. It was about survival, control, and the enforcement of a principle that had protected humans for generations. Desperation began to set in among the aliens. One of them attempted to use a weapon, firing at a corridor in frustration. Instantly, a subtle system activated, redirecting the energy harmlessly but creating a loud noise that drew the attention of the humans. The alien realized too late that every aggressive move had been predicted. Every attempt to assert dominance was futile. The humans' calm efficiency was a weapon far more powerful than any blaster or tool. In another section of the ship, a small group of humans monitored the aliens' movements on their displays. They noted hesitation, fear, and the gradual breakdown of coordination. Patience remained their greatest asset. The aliens' mistakes were teaching them everything they needed to know. Arrogance could not survive in human space. Intruders would always be guided to understand this truth, no matter how clever or technologically advanced they were. The alien captain tried to regain composure. "We must stick together. We must find the central hub." But even this was futile. The humans had guided them into corridors where the aliens' numbers worked against them. Narrow passages, subtle obstacles, and unseen barriers forced them into positions that limited movement, caused confusion, and highlighted the consequences of their earlier arrogance. One alien tripped, nearly falling into a small mechanical trap designed to hold intruders in place. Another rushed to assist, only to trigger a subtle energy field that separated them again. Frustration boiled over, voices raised in panic and argument. The humans remained calm, patient, observing and subtly guiding each movement. The aliens' own fear had become part of the lesson, a reminder of the power of the law they had broken. As the night, or what passed for night aboard the ship, wore on, the aliens grew weary. Their confidence was gone, replaced by caution and respect. The humans had not needed to strike directly. They had enforced their law through strategy, patience, and precise control of the environment. The aliens were learning in real time that human ships did not take prisoners, and that this rule was absolute. Finally, the alien captain admitted aloud what it had been reluctant to accept. We underestimated them. We broke the law. The words hung in the dimly lit corridor, heavy with regret and fear. The crew around it nodded silently, no longer arguing, no longer confident. They understood finally that survival depended not on strength or cleverness, but on respect for the humans' absolute law. The humans, from the shadows and control decks, continued their quiet work. They did not gloat. They did not rush. They enforced the principle with precision, ensuring that the aliens learned what they needed to understand. Every trap, every subtle adjustment, every guided movement reinforced the same lesson. Arrogance could not survive against a species whose law was absolute. By the end of this phase, the aliens were humbled, wary, and exhausted. They had survived, but the experience had changed them. They had learned that the human strength was not in numbers, weapons, or technology alone, but in strategy, patience, and unbreakable principle. The law that human ships did not take prisoners had been enforced fully, and the aliens would carry the lesson with them forever. The humans returned to their quiet observation, continuing their journey through the stars, confident that their law was secure. Every system, every crew member, and every hidden mechanism ensured that intruders would never forget the cost of arrogance. The aliens had learned, and the lesson had been delivered in a way that would resonate far beyond this encounter. The law was clear, absolute, and undeniable. Human ships did not take prisoners, and anyone who challenged that law would feel the consequences. The alien crew, battered, exhausted, and humbled, slowly made their way toward the docking bay. Each step was heavy with realization, their pride shattered, their confidence replaced with fear and respect. The humans had not chased them, had not shouted or fired aggressively, yet the lesson had been unforgettable. Every corridor, every trap, every controlled barrier had enforced a law that the aliens could never ignore again. Human ships did not take prisoners. The captain of the alien team paused at a junction, looking back down the long corridor. For the first time, it truly understood the consequences of arrogance. They had believed themselves clever, powerful, and untouchable. They had believed that humans were a species that could be easily manipulated or intimidated. Now they had seen the truth. Human law was not just a rule. It was a force of nature within their ships, absolute and unyielding. The aliens reached the docking bay and prepared their pod for departure. Movements were slow and careful. Every step reminded them of the humans' subtle control, of the traps and barriers they had faced, and of the calculated patience that had guided every part of the encounter. They had survived, but they were forever changed. The arrogance that had brought them here was gone, replaced by a cautious humility they had never known before. As they prepared to leave, a human crew member quietly entered the docking bay. There was no threat in their presence, no aggression, just a steady, watchful calm, as if to remind the aliens that the law had been enforced and that any further violation would not be tolerated. The aliens recognized this silently, understanding that the humans' patience had been as dangerous as any weapon. Respect was earned through obedience, and the aliens had learned their lesson too late. The alien captain finally spoke, voice low and tight with understanding. We underestimated them. We ignored the law. We are lucky to leave alive. Its crew nodded, silent and thoughtful. They had learned a lesson not just in survival, but in respect for a species whose rules were absolute. The humans had demonstrated control, strategy, and patience beyond anything they had faced before. The pod detached from the human ship and drifted into space. The aliens' eyes watched the vessel, now calm and quiet, gliding through the stars as if nothing had happened. And yet everything had happened. They had experienced firsthand the power of a law enforced not by shouting, not by aggression, but by precision, patience, and unbreakable principle. The memory would stay with them forever. In the hours that followed, the aliens regrouped aboard their own ship. Discussions were tense and subdued. There was no celebration, no boasting. Pride had been replaced with caution. Plans were made to report back to their fleet, to warn others of the dangers of underestimating humans. Every alien present understood that the story they would tell would be one of fear, respect, and the power of a species that did not negotiate when its laws were broken. Meanwhile, the human crew continued their work aboard their ship. Systems were checked, corridors inspected, and hidden mechanisms reset. No one spoke of victory, no one celebrated. The law had been enforced, the principle preserved, and the lesson delivered. The humans moved through their vessel with quiet efficiency, a team bound not just by duty, but by an understanding that their law ensured survival. To them, this was routine. Yet every act reinforced the unspoken warning to anyone who might attempt the same mistake in the future. In the wider galaxy, whispers began to spread. Alien crews who had once laughed at tales of human law now shared their experiences, recounting the subtle yet absolute power of human ships. Stories emerged not of battles or violence, but of precision, patience, and enforcement. The reputation of humans grew, not through force, but through the undeniable consequences of their principle. Any alien who heard these accounts understood immediately. Human ships did not take prisoners, and those who underestimated them paid a heavy price. Back aboard their ship, the alien captain reflected quietly. "We came thinking we were clever," it said softly. "We leave knowing how wrong we were. We will never forget this law, and we will warn others. Humans are not just strong, they are absolute in their rules. Respect is survival." Its crew nodded in silent agreement. The lesson was deep, enduring, and unforgettable. The humans, meanwhile, continued on their journey through the stars, their ship quiet but vigilant. They did not need to strike directly to demonstrate their strength. The law itself, enforced with patience and precision, was enough. The aliens had learned the consequences, and the galaxy would remember the rule without humans having to repeat it. Their reputation was cemented, their principle reinforced, and their survival ensured. Even as the aliens disappeared into the void, the memory of their defeat lingered. Every corridor they had entered, every subtle trap they had encountered, every silent observer they had feared would stay with them forever. The human's law was not just a warning, it was a living principle, enforced with intelligence, patience, and unwavering determination. From that day on, the story of the encounter spread. Alien fleets passed on the tale, emphasizing caution, respect, and the absolute nature of human law. Any species daring enough to confront a human ship would recall the subtle yet terrifying lesson. Intruders were never to be taken lightly, and the cost of arrogance could not be overstated. Humans did not take prisoners. They enforced their law with precision, patience, and unyielding calm. Those who forgot this truth paid dearly. The aliens' retreat marked the end of this encounter, but the lesson endured. Across the galaxy, the humans' reputation as enforcers of their law grew. Ships moved more cautiously in systems they once thought easy targets. Stories of human patience and precision became legend, not for fear of violence, but for respect of principle. Humans had taught a lesson that words could not convey, one that action alone could enforce, and one that the universe would not forget. The alien captain recorded its report, careful to include every detail: the traps, the strategy, the patience, and above all, the principle. Never again, it concluded. Never underestimate humans. Never ignore their law. Never expect mercy. Its words would travel through star systems, warning others to respect the unyielding rules of human ships. Meanwhile, the humans continued their journey. Calm and vigilant, their law preserved, their principle unbroken, they moved through the stars not with pride or arrogance, but with quiet determination, enforcing a rule that ensured survival, respect, and order. The lesson had been delivered, the reputation secured, and the galaxy reminded that human ships did not take prisoners. Anyone foolish enough to forget this truth would face consequences they could never escape. And in the silence of space, the humans moved on, confident that the principle they upheld was absolute, their law enforced, And the galaxy forever reminded that arrogance in human space was always met with patient, precise, and inescapable consequence. The aliens had learned, the galaxy had learned, and the law of human ships would never be broken again.